Coach Vance Newgard here, Senior International Weightlifting Coach and Professor of Sport and Exercise Science. So building the quadriceps, strength and size for weightlifters, probably the easiest way is to just increase the number of squats that you do per week. That is the most specific way to improve your strength and your muscle mass in the quadriceps for Olympic weightlifters. Something that I did throughout my career, moving from squatting twice a week all the way up to squatting 8 times a week throughout my career. But we want to go a little bit deeper than that because it has its negatives. Its negatives are, of course, the stress is going to be put on your knees and your back. So let's get a little bit deeper than that. My first pick is the belt squat because it is the most specific quad exercise you can do while reducing the axial load on the spine. Because the spinal load is reduced, you can focus more on getting a deeper stretch in the quads and glutes without the risk of injury. You can also get closer to muscular failure than the back or the front squat because you won't reach the same level of mechanical failure like you do in those exercises. The belt squat can either replace the barbell or be added to barbell squatting when you can afford more volume in your program. Without a belt squat machine, it may be limited to lighter lifters and even some females because it becomes cumbersome and impractical, so belt squat machines are a good investment. There isn't good evidence that the front squat causes more quad growth in comparison to the back squat. Although knee flexion is higher in the front squat, the torque is approximately the same because less load can be used. The back squat puts more stress on the lower spine and the front squat puts more stress on the upper part of the spine. When quad growth is the main objective, the goal should be to reduce the load, stay as upright as possible while getting a deep stretch at the bottom and not allowing the hips to shoot back at the sticking point, loading up the glutes instead. A good cue when hitting the sticking point is to try to push the knees and hips forward, which will keep the hips from shooting backwards. The safety squat bar, when it has a camber, moves the load in front of the shoulders, so it's more like a front squat, and it takes a lot of the load off the lower back and puts it on the upper back instead. Squatting with the knees together or the heels elevated does create more flexion and creates more force in the quads at the same load due to more passive tension. But it is unknown if this leads to more quad growth than traditional squatting because you have to reduce the load, which ultimately reduces the torque. I would add these where there is room for more volume and keep an eye on the stress it puts on the knees. Any one-legged movement with deep knee flexion will have similar quad growth to squatting without the stress on the spine, but you lose some of the weightlifting-specific neurological adaptations you get from two-legged squatting. I like the high box step up where you drag your back foot for balance because it has similar depth and mechanics of the actual two-legged squat. But the split squats or lunges are comparable for muscle growth if proper knee flexion is used. The deficit snatch, grip deadlift, or pull to the knee while lowering under control will put similar knee flexion as the squat, but will be more specific to the leg drive off of the floor. The one quad muscle that squatting doesn't grow very well is the rectus femoris. It is a biarticulate muscle, which means while the knees are flexing, it shortens at the hip and doesn't get good muscle hypertrophy from squatting. Although the rectus femoris does not need to be strong to aid in the Olympic lifts, it can be a culprit in knee and back pain when it doesn't have a good resting length. So bodyweight leg extensions or a good machine that allows a deep stretch can help develop the other quadriceps muscles while increasing the fascicle length of the rectus femoris, which may aid in knee health.